It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them, so thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. My guest today is Tom Gillespie, President and CEO of Living Well Disability Services. Tom is a leader in providing exceptional services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or as he calls those he serves. He has more than 15 years of senior management experience working across the spectrum of roles in the disability services industry, including executive leadership, operations management, and group home management. Prior to his service at Living Well, includes more than a decade of strategic leadership at Minnesota disability service providers, including his time as executive director of the Duluth Regional Care Center. And prior to that, Tom was chief program officer of Hammer Residences in Wayzata. They provide services for more than 1,900 people impacted by disabilities. Tom is married to his high school sweetheart, Susie, and they have a 5-year-old son, Henry. And he received his undergraduate degree in psychology from the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and an MBA from Concordia University in St. Paul. Tom Gillespie, welcome into the corner office.
Thanks so much, Brant. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here, and it's a beautiful late February day in San Diego, and I won't tell you what the temperature is, but I know you're in Minnesota, so tell us how things are there today. Are you experiencing the throes of winter at the moment, or are you having a little bit of a reprieve?
Well, it's a sunny day here, and in February
Nice.
that means that if it's sunny, it's cold. So I've shoveled twice in the last 24 hours. We'll leave it at that.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, hopefully when people hear this, the thaw will be coming in Minnesota as well. And just so good to have you on the show. We always like to start in the beginning, Tom, and that's understanding a little bit about your early years. Tell us about where you grew up and what your early family life was like.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. So I grew up in the Minneapolis metro area, so just outside in a suburb called St. Louis Park. I was actually born in El Paso, Texas. My dad was in the military, but we moved to the Minneapolis area where he found work and kind of grew up there. Really spent all of my childhood there, and kind of got in with a group of friends and met my now wife while going to school there. So it's really kind of the home base for me and my family for sure.
Been apart for a while, yeah. Brothers and sisters?
I have an older sister. She's 3 years
Yeah.
older, so we kind of grew
Yeah.
up together. And then we have a brother that's 13 years younger than me. So
Oh, wow.
so he
Okay.
kind of had the best of both worlds, where he got to be
Big
the baby
gap,
of the
the
family
caboose.
and kind of an only child at times too while we were away at college. So
Yeah, I kind of know that feeling. My older brothers are 7 and 10 years older than me, so I think by the time I was 10, they were both out of the house. But it has its advantages and disadvantages.
for sure.
What about mom and dad? What did they do?
So my dad has always been in sales, kind of
Uh-huh.
postage sales. So worked for a company called Pitney Bowes for
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot of my
sure.
childhood, and
Right.
has
Great
has
company.
actually just retired recently from UPS, where he was a
Oh,
salesman
right.
for the last number of years. And my mom has always worked in the school system, so she was a
So,
special ed para for the majority of my childhood growing up.
nice. Any childhood lessons you remember from them? Things that recall growing up that kind of were formative in terms of some of the decisions you made, or maybe didn't make, as the case may be, growing up.
Yeah, we had a really typical childhood. It was the four of us, like I said, for the majority of it. So,
Yeah.
it was always about taking care of others. My mom was a
Mm,
big volunteer, so in addition to being a
yeah.
special ed para. I think she said yes every time there was something that needed volunteering. So she was great about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it was a lot of sports, a lot of activities, a little bit of church mixed in there, and
Right.
yeah, it was a lot of fun, but yeah, a lot of together time and a lot of outreach and taking care of others.
Sounds like some good modeling from mom that might have influenced your career down the road.
No question.
Well, we'll talk more about that later. What about other influencers? Were there grandparents nearby or any, special teachers or coaches that had an impact on you early on?
Yeah, like I said, sports was really big. So, I
Right.
would say in general, sports just brought so many great people into our lives. My
What did you
dad
play? What,
coached.
what were your favorite sports? Yeah.
Yeah, so baseball was probably first and foremost. It's tough to be a Minnesota sports fan really for the last forever, but as I was growing up in 1987 and 1991, the Twins won World Series, so that
That's
was
right. That's
a,
right.
a big time, and then played football, played hockey. Those were the primary sports in my life.
Vikings had some good years during those years as well, didn't
Yeah, but always ending in heartbreak. The missed field
they?
goals, just the heartbreak. So yeah,
A
it's
fun
it's
team to
always
watch, right? Always a fun
yeah,
team to watch.
until you get to the playoffs or until there's a pressure play, they break your heart. But that's how it goes.
Yeah. Were you a good student in school?
As I've listened to your podcast, I hear just about everybody say yes. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't academically the best student, but I
Right.
loved school because it was a social connection
Yeah.
point. So it's where I came to
Yeah.
see my friends. It's where, like I said, I got to play the sports that I wanted. So I excelled in everything at school except probably the books, but C's get degrees, as they say, and so I made it through, and I was able to make it into a community college first, and then on to the U of M.
When did you start kind of first volunteering and, kind of finding your heart and passion for serving others?
It really was as I was in college. So I was at the
Yeah.
University of Minnesota at their Duluth campus, which is in northern
Yeah.
Minnesota, and I needed a summer job at one
Yeah.
point. And like I said, my mom was a special ed para. She had a friend who worked for a company that ran group homes, and she said,
Yeah.
they're hiring. Why don't you check it out? And I did, and really it was supposed to be a summer job. I had every intention of going back to work at the Super America overnights in Duluth at college. But I just fell in love with the work, and that's
Yeah.
that's really when I kind of just grew a passion for serving others and taking care of folks that they have the same desires, needs, wants as you and I do, but need a little help to get those things done.
What did you like best about it when you first kind of, had that first job and experienced it?
It's the people. It's always been the people for me.
Yeah.
The people that we get to serve, the people that we get to work with. The work that we do, serving others, it attracts just the very best people. And so the families that we get to work with, the people that we have the honor of serving, and our coworkers are always just the best.
Yeah, awesome. Now you went on to the University of Minnesota, and then after that, obviously your master's degree, you studied psychology. So
Mhm.
was that kind of an influencing factor as well? Did you choose that field to study because you knew you wanted to get into that, or what were your choices, or how did you make that choice around that undergraduate degree?
Yeah, so as an undergrad for psych, it really came down to do I want to do psych or business? And
Right.
as I mentioned, I wasn't always the best student in high school, so I didn't have a ton of confidence at the time. So I said, well, let's give psychology a try. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with it again, kind of the study of people, getting insights into why we are the way we are, and the way that we act, and things like that. So that really was fun, and it lined up. It has certainly served me well throughout the years, just having an
Sure.
understanding and compassion for others, and
Yeah.
I
And
think
what
that's
was
been
that
really
first
helpful.
time job after you graduated?
So my first real job was really that group home job that I started
That
in
group
in
home?
the summer before my senior year.
Got it.
I worked there. Like I said, it was supposed to kind of last through the summer and ended up lasting really until today. So I worked
Awesome.
weekends while going to college. So I stayed beyond the summer and drove back and forth between Duluth and Minneapolis to keep the job and still finish classes. And when I graduated, I got a management position, got an assistant manager, and then a manager, and just kind of kept climbing up over the last 20 years. And
Yeah.
here I am still in the field.
And that was Hammer Residences, right? That was your first employer.
Yeah, that was the first job, and stayed there about 15 years, and just
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. Again, just amazing people and fantastic organization. I still am very close with many people from there, and collaborate with their CEO regularly.
Awesome, awesome. And you got your MBA along the way.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about your decisions. I think it was about 4 or 5 years of experience before you went back. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's about correct. And it was really about the fact that as I'd been working in the group homes, and kind of climbing into various management positions, and ultimately overseeing 10 plus locations, it really
Yeah.
became more about managing people, managing budgets, managing strategy, things like that, and less about the day-to-day doing the work. And so that really drove the decision to go get an MBA, and
Yeah.
really get into really a lot of the stuff that I missed out on by studying psychology the first time around.
A lot of people, and I'm sure many of our listeners would say this, that, MBA, a master's degree, whatever it might be, is kind of a pivot sometimes, right? Where people go and, they can say, I'm really not so sure in my career, but, I want to get some extra skills and maybe I'll go in another direction. Did you have those thoughts at all? Or were you kind of focused on, hey, I really just need to step up my business game so I can do better, in the choosing profession that you were in?
Yeah, so for me, it was definitely the latter. I really
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of further the direction that I was going in already. So I actually, as I went back to school, Hammer Residences was kind enough to grant me a scholarship to go back and get that
Oh,
MBA. So it was always about
that's
kind of furthering that organization, furthering our field in general. I think our field, unfortunately, has a lot of great people come into it, and then ultimately those folks kind of pass through and into something else. So
mhm.
so for me, it was always about staying, making sure that our industry and myself and my contributions were expanding, and kind of I guess further solidifying a business approach to an otherwise kind of people-driven business.
Right, right. Tell us about some of those early challenges that you had, particularly as you went kind of into leadership responsibility. I'm sure you probably took over management of folks that might have been there for maybe years or months before you, and maybe, had some years of seniority as well. Were some challenges there?
Yeah, well, that's kind of been a theme. I don't know if I'd say challenges, although there have been some. Definitely it's been a theme for me, as kind of being the new kid, the young guy in the room, whatever
Yeah.
it is. And so, as a new manager coming in, I understood leadership and management at the time to be uh, the smartest person in the room. You had to have all the answers, and be the solution to every problem. And that's obviously sets you up to fail pretty quickly. Obviously, you can't solve every problem, and if
But
you
you try
try,
hard to, right?
you try. And unfortunately, what I learned is, if you come close, and you become the solution to every problem, that becomes a pretty major problem itself, right? It
Yeah.
takes away the skills of others. It takes away
Right.
the confidence of others, and instead your phone just rings off the hook. So really, you burn yourself out, and you take the ball out of other people's hands, and that's not
Right.
leadership.
Right, right. Is there kind of a common thread or, a common motivation for a lot of people that join, this area of work that you're in? And if so, what does that is? Tell us a little bit about that. What are the kind of the qualifications, kind of, well, the resume stuff is as important perhaps, but, what does it take from the heart to really do good work in this field?
Well, I think we often say that if people have a heart for this work, we'll teach them the rest. When
Yeah.
I started in the field, I didn't know how to cook, I didn't know how to clean, I couldn't pass a medication. I was an objectively terrible hire, Brant. But if you have a heart for the work, you can always learn it, because it's really, I mean, the crux of everything that we do is a relationship. If you have a relationship, you can learn how to serve others. If you have a passion for helping people be the best version of themselves, you can learn how to cook. You can learn how to fold clothes. You can learn how to pass a medication. And the fact is, if you have that strong relationship, you're likely going to do it a heck of a lot better. So when we're looking for staff, we're looking for people who want to care for others, maybe have some family connection to the type of services that we do, or some reason for serving others. We have a lot of folks who are looking to be nurses or work in the healthcare field that come to us.
Yeah.
And then we have just a lot of great people who just want to help others, and that's again, that's the magic of what we do.
Now, the people that your residents that are there, do you call them residents, or do you have another name that you refer to them as?
We usually, if best case scenario, we call them Joe or Johnny or whatever their name is.
Yeah,
But yeah,
right.
I mean, we would say the people that we serve, we
People
try
that you
not to
serve.
have it
Yeah.
be clinical. We try not
Right,
to say
right.
patients or whatever. But yeah.
Now, are they there full time? In other words, this is kind of be their life when they check in, or is it also folks that you kind of prepare for the outside world that then go out on their own? Combination of that. Give us a little bit of a flavor for what Hammer and other folks, and we'll talk about your current position in a moment. But I know you spent so much time at Hammer. I'd love to hear a little bit more about just exactly how you encountered that, and what the folks that you serve there we're doing in how you help them along.
Yeah, I think if our system is working the way that it should, we should be doing all the things that you just listed and then
Yeah,
some. Our system really, when operating correctly, should be a spectrum of supports from
yeah,
one end where somebody maybe needs a little help getting to and from work or to and from the doctor. We might provide a bit of transportation support.
right,
On the far other end of the spectrum, and this is where Living Well really excels, is serving folks who are aging or rather medically fragile or needing a lot of medical supports. And so we're doing things like you know helping folks manage feeding tubes and assistance with breathing and
yeah,
ventilator support, suctioning, things like that. So really, again, it's a spectrum of support. For most of our folks outside of COVID times,
right,
we would have folks who are home, probably 16 or so hours a day, and then they would
yeah,
go out to work during the day, whether that's an actual job. Some of our folks go to kind of a day training or day services location. So some of those folks, that's more recreational than it is job focused, and others it's actually doing jobs in a work facility. So everybody's a little bit different, but
no,
normal times people would be with us about 16 hours of the day. Of course, with
right,
COVID, we're one of the services that's really been kind of locked down, if you will, and
yeah,
continue to be pretty locked down to this day. So our folks are really with us 24/7 right now,
right,
and
right.
it's our job to both keep them safe, keep them well cared for, but also keep people entertained because they don't have that job to go to during the day.
Yeah, yeah. And so are all the folks that you serve are in specific residences that you folks manage, or do you also go and serve them in their homes and in other locations?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So Living Well provides both of those types of services. So
Okay.
we have
Yeah.
37 group homes in the Minneapolis St. Paul metro area,
Wow.
and we have typically four to six people living in each home. And then we also do send some of our staff out to maybe a family's home, or some of our folks have their own homes and just need a
Sure.
little bit of help a couple days a week, that sort of
Right.
thing. So we play obviously a smaller role in those folks' lives, but equally important.
Are there folks that you serve that kind of graduate from the residences to go back out on their home, but you stay in touch with them and help them as they continue to grow and need additional services? Is it that type of a relationship as well?
Yeah, certainly for folks on that kind of less intense end of the
Yeah.
spectrum, a lot of those
Yeah.
folks, think of high school students who are coming out of a special ed system and
Right.
have never lived on their own. We would
Right.
be building skills, helping people kind of experience what it is to live on your own, making sure that people know how to cook, how to take care of themselves, ride the bus, things like that. So we're building those skills in hopes of then them moving to a more independent type of a setting. And then, as folks age, certainly we go the other way too, where people have maybe lived on their own or lived with family the majority of their life, but as either their needs change or their family's capabilities change, they need a more sustainable solution. And so, those folks we tend to serve a bit later in life, but they move into our group homes, and we're thrilled to be able to serve them for that part of their life.
Awesome, awesome. What are some of the leadership challenges that you've faced, Tom, over that period of time? And I'm specifically thinking about the folks that have the direct contact, as you did, early in the career, because I know you've progressed through a variety of different things. And how do you address those? Because I can imagine there's physical challenge, probably emotional challenges from some of the employees that you lead. And how do those things get addressed? What are those, I guess, and how do those things get addressed?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we face as an industry, and this has been disproportionately hard in the last couple of years, but it's making sure that our staff are making a livable wage. Now, for
Mm,
us in our industry, we do not have the ability to set our prices. So we do not
right.
say, this is what our going rate is, and the government chooses to pay that. They basically assign a rate per hour of service or per unit of
Wow.
service. And so we take that price. So we're price takers really across the board. And we have to make it work. So, obviously fixed reimbursement from the government
Mm,
means not quite a fixed wage for our staff, but certainly it's a compressed range where we do not have the
yeah.
ability to say raise prices and raise wages. So that's probably the biggest difficulty for leadership, is making sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can
Mm,
for our employees. At Living Well, we're very proud to say that we care for our staff as well as we care for the folks that we serve.
yeah.
But obviously that's made difficult right now, and there's tough choices. So we want to make sure that our staff understand that we're a partner. Legislative advocacy and things like that are things that we take up as an organization, so that we can hopefully drive up that reimbursement. And as a nonprofit, we're not trying to increase revenue to increase profit. We're
Right.
trying to increase
Right.
revenue so that we can pass that on to our staff.
And serve more. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And is there supplemental fundraising that you need to do or can do beyond the government subsidies?
There is. So as a nonprofit, that's probably our biggest differentiator, and
Yeah.
something that we need to do, especially these days, more of and better with. But yeah, as an organization, Living Well brings in about 750,000 a year in fundraised dollars, and really we say that's what helps us be exceptional. That's what takes our
Right.
services beyond the basics, and really helps us make sure that people are engaged in their community. They're living what they define to be a meaningful life, not what you or I would say is a meaningful life
Right.
for them, but a life
Right.
of their choice, and that's what we should all aspire to.
Yeah. And a lot of growth. I know that you've been, what about, is it about a year and a half, 2 years now or just a little over a year,
Yeah,
right?
just over
At
a
Living
year.
Well.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
oh, just in terms of growth, for us,
Right.
it's a time, especially with COVID, and like we talked about with the staff, where we don't have the ball. We're not playing offense right now. So we've
Yeah.
we've opened one new location in the last year. We're very proud to have done that. To be honest, a lot of
Yeah.
our
Gosh,
peers right
during
now are
COVID, what a
actually,
challenge. Yeah.
yeah, it was impressive, and really in the context of many of our peer organizations closing homes right now. Minnesota's experiencing actually a
Mm,
kind of a step back due to the funding and staffing challenges right now.
mm.
More providers are closing homes than opening them. So we were thrilled to be able to do that, and I think the big growth area for us is really that fundraising and trying to kind of do
Yeah.
more on top of what the reimbursement from the government is.
Right, right. And has that been successful during this last phase of the pandemic? Are you finding that there's, a bigger response in the community, particularly given some of the challenges that you're facing given the pandemic?
It has been, especially in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
In the past decade or so, we've had to make a case for how impactful our services are and how important they are. And if there's a silver lining to COVID, it's certainly that people understand how important healthcare and long-term care are. We've sort of been pulled to the front to show that we don't get to close up shop. Where our DSPs do not get to work from home. We're a 24/7 365 need people kind of an industry, and so this pandemic has really helped us kind of shed light on that for the rest of society, I think.
Yeah, yeah. How do you do your recruiting? How do you find the people that you want to invest in and hire, for the operations?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm just about ready to go start knocking on people's doors, but we do right now, like everybody. I mean, we use a lot of the online services, Indeed, and
Yeah,
those types of folks. We also do direct mailing to folks who might be in nursing school, things like that. Virtual job fairs, and any way that we can get in front of people. We actually had an in-person job fair the other day, which is nice to see those things coming back.
right, right.
But the biggest source for us is our own employees,
Yeah,
referral
referrals.
based, and
Yeah,
that tends to be our best source, and probably the best source of people that stay.
finding like-minded folks.
Exactly.
You know, in my own observations of the industry, there tends to be a fairly high immigrant component
Mhm.
with a lot of that staffing. Are you experiencing that as well, where you'll get a lot of either first or second generation folks that'll come in, or not so much the case where you
Yeah, no, that's definitely been the case for us,
live?
both at Hammer and at Living Well. When I was in Duluth at DRCC, we saw less of that, but that was more of a kind of demographic difference in northern Minnesota versus the more metro area. But yeah, for us at Living Well, we have a very strong immigrant workforce, and the majority actually of our employees, over 55%, are people of color. Many of those
Yeah,
folks are immigrants, and do
yeah.
do fantastic work. They really do. The caring and compassion that we see from those folks is it's just incredible.
Yeah. And how do you find that kind of the cultural integration with that? Are there challenges with that, or do they have certain skill sets that maybe even, prepare them better for that? I lived in Asia for many years, Tom, and one of the things that so impressed me was the multi-generational living. And you would
Mhm.
find 70, 80% of households would have grandmother or grandfather around, and the kids there, and they've been living together for generations, right, where you would have typically
Right.
that type of support. And it just seems to breed kind of more of a caring for elders, particularly for those that are younger, and as well as the expectation that that's what's you're to do as you get older, and then
Yeah.
you kind of have the expectation that you're going to be cared for too by the youngers. Does that play at all a fact in some of the recruiting you do and some of the folks that you might identify?
I think it absolutely speaks to our staff, and why many of these folks are drawn to our work. I think you're right. Caretaking is more just part of the everyday, and part of the culture for a lot of other places in the world, and so that's definitely a part of it. And again, we see tremendous work, and when you ask about challenges, I would say that those challenges are ours, to make sure that we're adapting our orientation, our communication, the way that we interact with folks. We need to adapt to that, and so I wouldn't call that a challenge. I would say that's part of us being an effective organization, is making sure that we're doing that in a way that is as effective, if not more so, for that population than it is for somebody who was born down the street.
Yeah, awesome. Now you've been doing this for the better part of the last 20 years. How would you say your leadership styles evolved over that time, Tom?
Well, like I said, when I first became a manager, I thought I had to have every answer, and I think
I think
that's
that's pretty common.
yeah. Well, that would be, fast forward to the advice question at the end. That's not how you do it. But for me, I think the way that it's evolved is kind of, I guess in my early years, I was very quick to raise my hand. I probably still am, but I was also very quick to speak, to share my thoughts, to direct the conversation. And I think as I've evolved and kind of gotten better at this thing, I've learned to ask more questions, to be hopefully the last one to speak, not the first. I tend to collect perspective, to collect input before sharing thoughts, and I think that's important. Leadership. You gotta bring in all the data points. You gotta listen. You gotta get all the different aspects before any decisions. I think without listening and knowing the thoughts of your team, you're going to pick the wrong direction. So it really is about listening, surrounding yourself with great people, trusting them, letting them do their job, and making sure that we stay pointed in the right direction.
Yeah. Give us kind of an overview description of Living Well Disability Services and the company culture. If you had to kind of boil it down to, what you folks are all about, what would that statement be, or your mission statement?
Our vision statement for the organization is we strive for a day when folks who are impacted by disabilities and our staff live well, and I think that sums it up really well. It's about us chasing down, first defining what living well means.
Yeah, and that could be different, I suppose, for each of the people you serve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we're doing it right, it should look different, right? I mean, you and I have different goals. We have different interests, probably different favorite foods or whatever that might be. So the first thing is just to have that conversation, right, with the people that we serve, with the employees that we have. We need to define what it means for them, and then we need to tailor our support and our leadership and all of that to make sure that we're helping drive that forward. Yeah. And then I think the most important part is once we've done that, you start over. You ask the question again, because it's going to change. If you had asked me 10 years ago, I'd have really different thoughts than I do now, and hopefully I'll have really different thoughts in 10 years because we're all changing.
Yeah, fantastic. And gosh, it's just being in the recruiting world and just thinking about your world. And we've done a little bit of nonprofit over the years, but it's maybe 5 or 10% of the business. It's got to be so hard to find those folks. Probably even more so than, in a kind of a corporate job where it's just defined as a sales manager or an accountant. How do you kind of get at the questions that you ask, Tom, in terms of kind of determining who the kind of people are that should be joining your organization?
So what kind of questions do I ask when I'm interviewing?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. To really kind of get underneath the surface of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing I always ask people when they're coming to interview with me, and I guess first, I have the benefit of not having to check resumes, or I assume that people have the skills if they've made it to an interview with me. Right. So that's a benefit. But the first thing I ask people to do is to tell me a story. And I just say, tell me a story about something you're proud of. And I don't say it has to be work or it has to be family. But the first thing I learn about somebody by saying that is, it's kind of a statement of priority. What are they going to tell the story about? Yeah. And then you also see. You learn a lot from people when you ask them to tell a story. How can they spin a yarn? Can they pull you in? Can they engage you? Those types of things. And so I learn a lot about that. And then I also ask people a lot about the way that they do their work, the way that they make decisions. I like to ask people how they know when they're right or when they have the right answer. It's an interesting question, and if they give me too short of an answer or they're too sure in the way that they find out that they're right, I like to push back. It's something that ideally somebody would answer that question by saying they've shopped it around to some colleagues, they've bounced it off of people. We can't be right by ourselves. You gotta kind of run the gauntlet before you know that you have a good and working solution. So I like to get insight into that, and then the other thing that I often ask people to do is actually do a bit of a work simulation. So I would have people Commonly I'll have them pick a topic that's important in their part of our work, and present about it, why it impacts our work, why it's important,
Mm.
what we should do about it as an industry or as an agency.
Kind of
Um,
like a case
just
study.
again
So
to see.
do they you prep them
Yeah.
beforehand, or is that something you would do in the interview situation?
No, I typically, and I've gotten some eye rolls from people over the years that, wow, you're really going to make them do this. But I like to, yeah, I like to give them a bit of homework, give them
Yeah.
a few days to go through it, offer them, if they're internal, or even sometimes if they're external, to offer them the resources of our organization. You can talk to our finance folks,
Oh,
talk to our billing folks, whatever you need. And see what they come up with. But again, it's about, did they use those
right,
resources? Did they
right.
tap into the network that we provided them? Did they increase their perspective? Um, that really tells us a lot about how people then are going to go about their work. And I think it's important. Everybody can answer a question well.
Sure.
Again, by the time they're meeting with me, they've answered some questions well. So I like to get off the page and see how people work.
Right. The case study situation is great. We're going through a CHRO
Mhm.
search for a large retailer down in the southeast, and we've down to the final candidates, and we're going through case studies, and it's so interesting to see how some folks, and again, same sort of situation. We're providing as much data as we can. There's a lot of information you can go to, and how some folks just skim. And don't even
Mhm.
bother to address the data they've been given or ask for any more, and kind of do a cookie cutter approach and pull a template from
Mhm.
somewhere else. And then others will come back with 15 questions, on top of the data, and want to know more and really start to dig. And,
Yeah.
and even before you see the presentation, you've got kind of a feeling for, well, I kind of like this person, and she's getting into it
Exactly.
a little
Yep.
deeper than what we expected. I'm sure you see some of that
Yeah.
as well.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
people tend to make the decision easy. By the time you've gone through a process like that, it's often pretty clear who the right person is for the
Right.
job. And
Right.
to your point, it's not always about getting the right answer.
Yeah.
It's about using the right
That's
process. How
right.
did you make people feel while you went through it?
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
types of things.
yeah, and the ideas that they come up with. How's retention
Yeah.
in the industry, Tom? Are you able to keep the people that you come on and hire? Do you have a high level of turnover, vis-a-vis either other nonprofits or the profit-driven world? Tell us a little bit about that.
Turnover's always been a struggle for
Yeah,
our industry. I said earlier, we get a lot of great people who come to our industry. Many of those folks leave. We're kind of a stepping stone type of an
yeah,
industry. So on the one hand, we're thrilled to have great people as long as we can have them.
yeah,
But those transitions, especially for the folks that we serve, are incredibly difficult. Imagine living in a group home and having 30 different staff over the course of a year come in and go through some pretty intimate stuff with you.
yeah.
It's tough to have a lasting relationship when turnover is high. So
Mm,
so that's always been a struggle for our industry. For living well, it's better than most. To be fair, I take good pride in the fact that we have so many long-term staff, many
congratulations.
who have been with us 20 or more years. But
Yeah,
right now the challenge, especially with the pay and just worker shortage in general, um, the people making it to 1 year of tenure is lower probably than it's ever been, and so that really is a struggle for us right now.
what do you think the real wow is, or the thing about living well that has kept people there, that's kept that retention rate high?
I think it's about the focus on our people, the
Mm,
relationships. We
mm,
we really do invest in our employees, their wellness, their well-being, and we just came through a strategic planning session, and out of that, our top two strategies are really about taking care of our employees,
mm.
connecting with them, making sure that we're building a relationship that's fruitful both while they're at work and while they're not. We want to support the whole person and make sure that when people come to work, they know that they're working with a partner, that they're cared for, and we're interested in their success as well. And so I think that's always been a part of who we are. our recent planning session kind of helped us put that on paper and say it really overtly and kind of shout it from the rooftops. But that's always who we've been, and I think that's what's helped us over the years.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Tom, we're just about out of time, but you know what the last question is. A lot of our audience out there, of course, many of you folks are looking at their careers and trying to figure out where to go. What career and life advice would you give to someone who maybe has their eye on the corner office, wants to be an ED somewhere in a nonprofit, but maybe doesn't know exactly how to get there? What would your takeaway points be?
I think the biggest thing for me is to always be curious. Never be the smartest person in the room, and if you are, get out. So that,
you're in the wrong room.
That's right. So that's important. Be curious. Focus on relationships. Focus on collaboration. That's the stuff that gets you through the hard times. Making sure that you're with a group of people and you're doing work that you want to stay connected to, and you want to go through whatever the challenges are. You want to go through that with that team.
Yeah.
So building those relationships, having the right people. That's really what it's all about. So lead with empathy, lead with curiosity. The rest will figure itself out.
Well, Tom Gillespie, Chief Executive Officer at Living Well Disability Services, thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office, and thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Brant. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.